The champagne glasses clinked as Eleanor Morgan celebrated what she believed was her greatest triumph. Our entire family had gathered at Maison, one of the city's most exclusive restaurants, to celebrate what she called her son's new beginning. I stood quietly by their table in my waitress uniform, watching the scene unfold. Rachel, dear, Eleanor turned to me with her trademark condescending smile. I suppose we should thank you for serving us tonight. It's fitting, really. This is where you belong, serving your betters. My hands remained steady as I poured more champagne into her glass. 5 years of marriage to her son Michael had taught me to expect the worst from Eleanor Morgan. But even I hadn't anticipated this level of cruelty. Mother, Michael protested weakly, avoiding my eyes. Maybe we should discuss this privately. Nonsense, Eleanor dismissed with a wave of her hand. Everyone needs to know Michael is finally marrying someone worthy of the Morgan name. Isabella Liu, the daughter of that famous chef everyone's talking about. No more pretending that a mere waitress could ever fit into our world. I carefully set down the champagne bottle, noting how my sister-in-law Victoria couldn't quite hide her gleeful smile. The entire Morgan family sat around that table, watching my public humiliation with varying degrees of satisfaction and discomfort. Would you like to see the dessert menu? I asked professionally, my voice unwavering. Eleanor laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. Oh, you're still trying to maintain dignity? How quaint. Tell me, how does it feel knowing my son is upgrading to someone who actually understands fine dining instead of just serving it? I could have ended their celebration right then. One word from me and the maitre d' would have thrown them out. After all, I didn't just work at Maison. I owned it, along with 12 other high-end restaurants across the country. But patience had always been my strongest virtue. I hope you enjoy your evening, I replied simply, turning to walk away. Wait, Michael called out, finally finding his voice. Rachel, we should talk about this. I didn't want you to find out this way. I paused, looking at my husband of 5 years, the man who promised to stand by me through everything, who'd sworn his mother's disapproval wouldn't matter, who'd apparently been seeing Isabella Liu behind my back for months. There's nothing to talk about, I said quietly. Your mother's right about one thing. This is exactly where I belong. Let them think I'm meant as a waitress. Let them believe their assumptions about my position in life. I learned long ago that people see what they expect to see. Walking back to the kitchen, I passed Antoine, my head chef. He raised an eyebrow questioningly, having witnessed the entire scene. Madame, shall I? Not yet, I murmured. Let them finish their meal. I'd inherited my first restaurant at 25 when my grandmother passed away. She'd built Maison from nothing, teaching me everything she knew about the restaurant business while allowing me to work my way up from dishwasher to waitress to manager. Never let them see everything you are, she'd always said. Keep something in reserve. When I married Michael at 28, I'd already expanded to 3 locations. Now at 33, my restaurant empire was worth millions, but I kept that quiet, allowing Eleanor to believe I was just a waitress who'd somehow trapped her precious son. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Can we please talk about this? I know it's a shock, but Isabella understands our world in a way you never could. I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Another buzz. Mother says you can keep the apartment we've been living in. She's being generous, considering everything. The apartment they thought was a rental but was actually one of my properties. The same building where Isabella Liu currently lived in a penthouse apartment, paying rent to my management company. I called my lawyer, the one I consulted 3 months ago when I first noticed Michael's suspicious behavior. Catherine, it's time. Remember those papers we discussed? The ones documenting his affairs and financial misconduct. Already prepared. When do you want me to file? Monday morning. And Catherine, make sure the Morgan family's accounts are flagged at all my restaurants, effective immediately. I ended the call and opened my laptop, reviewing the security footage from Isabella's penthouse lobby. There it was, Michael entering at various hours over the past months, always when he claimed to be working late, each visit documented, time-stamped, and saved. Eleanor's voice carried across the restaurant. Finally, our Michael will have a wife who appreciates fine cuisine, who understands wine pairings and proper table settings. No more embarrassing moments at charity galas. I smiled, remembering all those galas where I played the role of the unsophisticated waitress-turned-wife, watching Eleanor criticize my every move while I signed checks funding those very events through my charitable foundation. My phone buzzed again, this time from Victoria. You didn't really think you'd keep him, did you? A waitress in the Morgan family. Mother's been working on this match with Elias for months. Perfect. More evidence of premeditation. I typed a quick message to my restaurant manager. Flag any reservations under Liu or Morgan at all locations. Full documentation of visits, charges, and security footage. The response came immediately. Already done, boss. Want us to cancel their current reservation? No, I replied. Let them enjoy their celebration. It's going to be their last meal at any of our establishments. Through the kitchen doors, I could hear Eleanor regaling the table with stories of Isabella's accomplishments, her culinary degree, her father's famous restaurants in Hong Kong, her understanding of fine wines. What Eleanor didn't know was that Isabella's father had approached me 6 months ago about selling his struggling restaurant group. The papers would be signed next week, adding his 4 locations to my portfolio. I wondered how he'd react when he learned his future son-in-law's soon-to-be ex-wife was his new boss. My phone buzzed with an alert from my banking app. Michael had just tried to use our joint credit card to pay for the evening celebration, a card I quietly canceled an hour ago. I watched through the kitchen window as he frowned at his phone, then pulled out another card and another, each declined thanks to my careful financial planning. Is there a problem with the payment? I asked, approaching their table one last time. Eleanor's face reddened. Michael, what's going on? I don't understand, he muttered, pulling out his phone to check his banking app. All my cards are declining. How embarrassing, I said softly. Would you like me to ask the manager to come over? Yes, Eleanor snapped. This is ridiculous. We're the Morgan family, we don't have payment problems. I nodded and walked away, but instead of fetching the manager, I returned to my office. Through the security feed, I watched as Antoine approached their table. Mrs. Morgan, he said formally, I regret to inform you that your family's accounts have been flagged in our system. We cannot accept payment from you at this time. This is outrageous. Eleanor stood up, her voice rising. Do you know who we are? Call the owner immediately. The owner is already aware of the situation, Antoine replied calmly. In fact, she's the one who flagged your accounts. The owner? Michael looked confused. What does the owner have to do with our cards declining? I picked up my phone and typed a quick message to the family group chat Michael had created to announce his news. Since you're having trouble with the bill, I'll take care of it. Consider it my wedding gift to Michael and Isabella. After all, that's what family does, right? I watched through the camera as phones buzzed around the table. Eleanor grabbed hers first, her face contorting as she read my message. What is she talking about? She demanded. She's just a waitress. I pressed send on another message. Oh, and Eleanor, you might want to check who owns the building where Isabella lives. The same person who owns this restaurant and 12 others across the country. The silence at their table was absolute as the implications sank in. That's impossible, Michael whispered, but I could see the dawning horror on his face as he finally put the pieces together. My comfortable lifestyle despite my waitress salary, my extensive knowledge of fine dining that I carefully hid, my quiet confidence in the face of his mother's constant criticism. My phone buzzed one last time that evening from Michael. We need to talk. Now. I walked out of my office and through the kitchen, straightening my waitress uniform. It was time to greet my guests properly. Rachel? Michael stood up as I approached their table, his face pale. You. Among other things, I replied calmly, removing my waitress apron. Antoine, please ensure the Morgan family's meal is added to my personal account. Eleanor's face had turned an interesting shade of red. This is some kind of trick. You're just a waitress. We've watched you serve tables for years. Actually, Mother, I said, emphasizing the title she never let me use before. You watched me manage my business. There's a difference. Victoria, my sister-in-law, was frantically Googling on her phone. Her eyes widened. Maison Group, 13 high-end restaurants. Founder, Rachel Bennett Montgomery. She looked up at me in shock. Montgomery, your grandmother's name. The same grandmother you mocked for being just a cook at our wedding. I reminded her. She built this restaurant empire from nothing. I've spent the last 5 years expanding it. Michael sank back into his chair. All those times you stayed late at work. I was running my business. Yes, just like all those times you claimed to be working late but were actually visiting Isabella in the penthouse apartment she rents from my property management company. Eleanor stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward. You've been spying on my son. No, I've been monitoring my property. The security cameras in my buildings are there for everyone's safety. I smiled pleasantly. They captured some very interesting footage over the past few months. You had no right, Michael began, but I cut him off. I had every right to protect my interests, especially after you started embezzling from our joint accounts to fund your affair. The color drained from his face. I didn't. The transfers to a secret account under your mother's name? The cash withdrawals that coincidentally matched the deposits into Isabella's account. My forensic accountant has documented everything. Antoine appeared at my side with a tablet. The papers you requested, madame. I took the tablet and turned it toward the table. These are screenshots of your text messages planning this little announcement tonight. Notice the timestamp on Eleanor's message. Everything's arranged. The Liu girl is ready to play her part. Rachel will be working the dinner shift as usual. Eleanor's hands shook as she reached for her wine glass. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can prove everything, including the fact that you've known about Michael's affair for months and helped orchestrate this public humiliation. I swiped to the next screen. These are records of your meetings with Isabella's father, planning what you thought would be an advantageous business merger through marriage. Michael leaned forward. Rachel, please, we can talk about this privately. Like you talked privately with Isabella in her apartment? Or like you talked privately with your mother about how to minimize the divorce settlement you thought you'd have to pay your waitress wife. Victoria was still scrolling through her phone. The Maison Group's estimated worth. Oh my God. Yes, I nodded. Quite a bit more than the Morgan family fortune. Speaking of which, I turned to Eleanor. You might want to reconsider that charity gala you're hosting next month. Your usual venue has suddenly become unavailable. You can't do that, Eleanor sputtered. The invitations have already gone out. I own the venue. I can do whatever I want. I pulled up another document on the tablet. Just like I can do this. Michael peered at the screen, his face growing even paler. What is that? Divorce papers. My lawyer will file them first thing Monday morning. They include complete documentation of your affair, your financial misconduct, and your mother's involvement in both. You'll never prove, Eleanor began, but I held up my hand. Every restaurant where you met Isabella, every hotel room charged to our joint account, every transfer of money, every text message, every security camera footage. I have it all. The silence around the table was deafening. You know, I continued conversationally, I always wondered why you hated me so much, Eleanor. Was it really because you thought I was just a waitress? Or was it because deep down you knew I was more successful than your entire family? This is blackmail, she hissed. No, this is business, something you clearly don't understand as well as you think you do. I turned to Michael. By the way, Isabella's father is selling his restaurant group. Care to guess who's buying it? Michael's jaw dropped. You're the buyer? The papers will be signed next week. I imagine that might make future family dinners a bit awkward. I smiled at Eleanor. Assuming, of course, that Isabella still wants to marry into the Morgan family once she learns her father's new boss is Michael's ex-wife. Eleanor grabbed her purse. We're leaving. Michael, come on. Oh, please stay, I said. Your credit cards may be declining, but as I said, this meal is on me. Consider it a parting gift. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it and couldn't help but laugh. Oh, and Eleanor, you might want to check your own account balance. It seems your financial advisor just received some very interesting documentation about your involvement in Michael's embezzlement. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings and media speculation. The society pages couldn't get enough of the story. Successful restaurant owner takes down cheating husband's family empire. Isabella, to her credit, broke off the engagement as soon as she learned the truth. Her father was surprisingly understanding when I met with him to finalize the sale of his restaurants. I should have known, he said, shaking his head. The way you analyzed the financials, the questions you asked. No waitress would have that knowledge. Eleanor and Michael tried to fight the divorce settlement, but the evidence was overwhelming. Their attempts to claim part ownership of my business were dismissed immediately. The judge was particularly unimpressed by their attempts to paint me as a manipulative spy who had somehow trapped Michael into marriage. Let me get this straight, the judge had said. reviewing the documents. You're claiming Mrs. Montgomery deceived you by successfully running her own business while allowing you to underestimate her. The Morgan family's social standing took a massive hit. Eleanor's charity gala had to be canceled when every high-end venue in the city suddenly became unavailable for that date. Michael found his business contacts mysteriously reluctant to meet with him, especially at any restaurants. Victoria tried to apologize, claiming she'd never known about Michael's affair. I sent her screenshots of her own text messages encouraging him to pursue Isabella. She didn't contact me again. 1 year after that fateful dinner, I sat in my office at Maison, reviewing plans for my newest restaurant. The door opened and Antoine entered with a familiar face. "Miss Liu," I greeted Isabella. "What can I do for you?" She shifted uncomfortably. I wanted to apologize. I never knew about your connection to the restaurant group when Michael's mother approached me. You saw an opportunity, I finished for her. I understand. Business is business. That's actually why I'm here, she said, pulling out a folder. I have a business proposition, a new restaurant concept I'd like you to consider. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Even after everything? Especially after everything. You turned a single restaurant into an empire while letting everyone underestimate you. That's the kind of mentor I need. I thought about my grandmother, about all the lessons she taught me about business and life. Sometimes, I said, opening the folder, the best revenge is success. And sometimes the best success comes from unexpected places. Does that mean you'll look at my proposal? I'll do better than that, I said. I'll teach you what my grandmother taught me. Never let them see everything you are. Keep something in reserve. My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. Michael is getting married again. I expect you to release the venue restrictions. I showed the message to Isabella, who laughed. Still trying to control everything. Some people never learn, I replied, then typed, "Congratulations. I wish Michael and his new bride all the success they deserve. By the way, I just bought the company he works for. Expect restructuring announcements soon." I turned back to Isabella's proposal. Now tell me about this restaurant concept of yours. The society pages love that story too. Ruthless restaurant mogul mentor's former rival proves success is the best revenge. But they missed the real story. It wasn't about revenge at all. It was about